Hello, welcome to ethics class. My name is Benjamin Nosko, and in my other job, when I'm not teaching for Finlandia, I am the priest at the local Orthodox church in Atlantic Mine. And so some people will call me Father Benjamin, and if you would like to call me Father Benjamin, that's great. If not, you can call me Benjamin, or you can call me Mr. Nosko, or you can call me Professor, or you can call me whatever you like. We are going to be doing ethics online this semester, and I have taught this class several times, mostly in person, but I've also taught it online. And so we're going to teach it using a variety of techniques. So we're going to have a lot of video lectures, and so I hope that you enjoy that. Some of them I'm going to make new for this course, like the one today. Others I have made previously for other courses, and we'll provide links to those. Some of them are going to be on YouTube. Some of them are going to be on Vimeo. If you have any trouble seeing any of the videos, please let me know, and we can work that out. So today, we're going to kind of go through the syllabus. We're going to talk about what's going to be going on in the class, and then we're going to talk a little bit about ethics, and then we're going to pick it up a little bit later this week. And the next talk that we're going to have is going to be about the Euthyphro. So first, let's have a look at the syllabus, and I have the syllabus up on the screen behind me. Actually, it's behind the camera that I'm looking at. So we're going to go through there, and the syllabus is the home page of our course on Canvas. So hopefully you have found that. This is a 3-credit course. We're going to be doing both classical theories of ethics and some contemporary issues. Most of the course will focus on classical theories, and then in the last several weeks of the course, we'll take a look at applying those theories to some modern and current problems. So there will be 2 texts in the course. The first one is this book, and this is the main text that we're going to use. All right, let's get a little bit closer so that everybody gets a good look. It should be available in the bookstore. If you don't want to buy it from the bookstore, the library has a lot of copies on reserve. And so this is the main text that we're going to use. It is a little bit, we're not going to be reading the whole thing. We are going to be reading substantial portions of it, but a lot of the readings that we're going to do are going to come from this book. So it's called Ethics, the Essential Writings. It is part of the Modern Library series. It's got a really kind of attractive gold spine on there. And this is where we're going to get most of the stuff that we're reading, starting with the Euthyphro. So the Euthyphro is right away in here, very early in the text. You see that part 1 is from Plato to Kierkegaard. I'm not going to be reading Kierkegaard, but we are going to be reading some Plato. And then what I would recommend is that when we start reading a new thinker, our author here, or the compiler of this anthology, always gives us a little glimpse, right? A little glimpse of who the person is, some biographical information. And in this case, really, we see that it's really about two pages. That can be very, very valuable. So please don't skip out on that when the reading is assigned. And then we see right away on page 6 of our text, we're starting with the Euthyphro, which is the first thing that we're reading. And we'll be using this book mostly for everything during the semester. There are going to be a couple of things that we want to cover that aren't in here. So there will be a few texts that I'm going to post independently to Canvas, and you'll see when we get there. And then there will be a couple of weeks in the middle of the course, right around spring break, 1 week before spring break and 1 week after spring break, that we're going to be reading from this text. This is by Immanuel Kant. It's The Grounding for the Metaphysics of Morals. As you'll see, it's not a very hefty book, but it is dense. So we will be reading the whole thing of this. Well, pretty much the whole thing. There's an essay here on the supposed right to lie because of philanthropic concerns. That's a separate essay that's included with this. We're not going to read that, but we're going to read the main portion of this, and that's going to be coming up right around spring break. So this book is also available in the bookstore. I don't know if the library has copies of this one on reserve, but it's not very expensive. I selected the books for this class, keeping in mind that a lot of college students don't have a lot of extra money, and so I tried to keep the book bill affordable. This one is not my favorite ethics text, but it is by far the most affordable ethics text that will work for our class, and so that's what we are using. So these are our two books. Please get them. And you will need to start reading the Euthyphro right away. Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of the syllabus. You students always want to know how they're going to be evaluated. 20% of your grade is going to be class participation, and this is more than I usually there's more than I usually evaluate class participation. Normally, class participation is primarily attendance. Are you in the room or not? We're in an online course, so I can't tell if you're in the room or not. But what we're going to do is every week we're going to be having discussions. Everybody will be asked to post some commentary about what has been read, and we're going to have discussions this way. So you're going to have to, say something thoughtful about the reading yourself, and then you'll have to comment in a thoughtful way about what one of your colleagues has said. And that is going to be graded. And those grades that we get for those discussions, that's what are going to make up the 20% of your class participation grade. Okay? What we're going to ask is that you write 100 words in response to a question that I'll post, and that maybe in response to one of your colleagues, you respond at least 50 words, and you won't be able to see what they commented until you leave your comments. So we're gonna try to enforce some interaction with that. This is a tool that I haven't used very much of in the past, so there might be a little bit of a learning curve, and there might be some adjustments here. But we need to have you being interactive with the course on a regular basis from the very beginning, because with an asynchronous online course, it's easy to get left behind and think that you can make stuff up along the way. And what I have found is that this material is more complex than a lot of people think at the very beginning. And so we need you to be paying attention from the very start. And so that's why that's going to be 20% of your grade. There will be then 2 midterm examinations. All of this is right in the syllabus. There will be 2 midterm examinations, and each one will be worth 20% of your grade. So this basically you're going to be getting 5 grades for the class. Each one is going to be 20%. You'll have a participation grade, you'll have a first midterm, you'll have a second midterm, you'll have a paper that will be assigned later in the course, and that paper is going to be about taking the classical theories of ethics and applying them to a modern question. So that will be assigned when we've gone through the classical theories of ethics. That will be 20%, and then your final exam will also be 20%. Of course, all this will be done as a take-home, and you'll be submitting these things to me electronically. I like to have submissions by email. Okay, and so that's how you're going to be evaluated in the course. And then in the syllabus, it's going to go through the course schedule week by week, and we'll talk about some of that now. So this week, which is the week of January 16th, and I know the 16th was Martin Luther King Day, and there was no classes. It was a day of service, but it's the first week of our class, and we don't have scheduled times, so we're going to go by that week. You'll see that this week we're going to be covering the syllabus. We're going to discuss what is ethics, and then we're going to read and discuss the Euthyphro by Plato, which is in the textbook, pages 6 through 23. And that's a good way to start. Then the following week, we're going to start on Aristotle and virtue ethics. We're going to be reading from the Nicomachean Ethics, which is the name of a book that he wrote a long, long time ago. And it's in the textbook, not the whole thing, but selections. And we're going to be talking about Aristotle and virtue ethics for 2 weeks, the week of January 23rd and the week of January 30th. The week of February 6th, we're going to talk about some other ancient views besides Aristotle's. We're going to talk about Epicureanism, or the philosophy of Epicurus, who who later on the utilitarians thought to be very important. And then we're going to talk about the tradition of Stoicism. Okay, and so during that week, our reading from Epicurus will be something separate. It'll be on Canvas. It'll be available for you to look at. And then we'll be reading from Epictetus, who was a Roman, in our textbook. Okay. That's going to cover the first unit of the class. So those are all ancient philosophies. And so the first midterm will be on those thinkers. And that will be the week of February 13th. We will have a review lecture, and then the exam will be due Friday night of that week. The week of February 20th, we're going to start to make our transition to modernism, and we're going to study two different philosophers, both of whom were named Thomas, but both of whom were very different. We will study a little bit of Thomas Aquinas, who was a thinker of the High Middle Ages, and then we will study also Thomas Hobbes, who was a very early modern thinker and who was writing during the English Civil War. Right? After we cover the two Thomases, we're going to get into Immanuel Kant. This will be the week of February 27th. So then we'll be switching to this book for 2 weeks, but it's going to feel like 3 weeks because spring break is in the middle of it. So Immanuel Kant was a thinker of the European Enlightenment, and in particular, he was a German, and he invented a new way of thinking about morality called deontology. Deontology is the study of your moral duty, and we're going to be covering Kant for the week before spring break, and then the week of March 6th, all of you will be on spring break, so we won't be worrying about any material then. And then the week following spring break, March 13th, then we will continue our discussion of Immanuel Kant. By the end of that week, we will have read and discussed this whole book. And this really is going to be the most challenging thing that we're going to read this semester. Kant was really one of the greatest minds in Western civilization, certainly. This is not his main book, and moral philosophy was not his main concern. He was primarily a metaphysician, but his moral philosophy has really had a lasting impact. And we see that Kantian ethics is a very important to understand, especially as it relates to healthcare. So a lot of concepts from this text have found their way into healthcare ethics, and so they're very important for us. All right, so once we finish with Kant, then the week of March 20th, we're going to cover utilitarianism. And then when we cover utilitarianism, we'll be back to this book. Every once in a while, we're going to have a considerable discussion about a philosopher that we're not reading. So the first time that we're going to do this is when we talk about Stoicism. We're going to talk about Zeno of Citium before we talk about Epictetus. And then also during this week when we discuss utilitarianism, we're going to talk about Jeremy Bentham before we talk about John Stuart Mill. And I used to assign a reading from Jeremy Bentham, but he was a brilliant thinker, but he was not a very good writer. And a lot of the things that he talked about are echoed and reinforced more eloquently by John Stuart Mill, who is somebody that Bentham knew from the day he was born and kind of formed his intellectual upbringing. So we are just going to be reading Mill that week. Okay. After that week on utilitarianism, that will be kind of the end of the modern period that we're talking about, or modern ethics. And that will also be the end of our discussion about theory. Right? And so the week of March 27th, then, we will have another review week. That is the week that you will get your paper assignment, because you'll have, by that point, the tools to be able to go out and do your paper. And we'll have our second midterm exam also that week, and that will be due on the evening of Friday, March 31st. So all of this is in the syllabus. All of these dates I would encourage you, if you I use Google Calendar for a lot of my personal stuff, put these important dates in Google Calendar so that when you are reviewing your calendar on a daily basis, you notice what's coming up. Okay? The week of April 3rd, we will start the third section of our course where we're focusing on contemporary issues in ethics. And so the week of April 3rd, we're going to be focused on the question of civil disobedience. So civil disobedience is really a topical concern in America, especially considering we had all the George Floyd protests a couple of years ago. We had the January 6th insurgency in 2021. And I would have every expectation that the next time we have a presidential election, that we will have even more civil disobedience. So we want to know what to think about it. We're going to read two very different thinkers on this. One of them is ancient. We're going to be going back to reading Plato that week. We're going to read his dialogue called Crito, which is a dialogue where Socrates gives an argument against the permissibility of civil disobedience. And then we're going to follow that up that week by reading a text from Martin Luther King Jr. called The Letter from a Birmingham Jail, where he is for civil disobedience. And I have to tell you that the letter from the Birmingham Jail is my favorite thing that we read during the course of the semester, because the writing is so good. Just his rhetorical approach is incredible. So the philosophy is not as complex as, say, Immanuel Kant, but the writing is so much better. And so we will enjoy reading Dr. Martin Luther King on the week of April 3rd. The week of April 10th, we're going to be looking at the contemporary issue of abortion, and we're going to be reading two articles that week. One is from the 1960s by Judith Jarvis Thompson called A Defense of Abortion, and the other is from the 1980s. And so this defense of abortion was written at a time like ours where abortion was legal in some states and illegal in other states. So it's really relevant to our circumstances. And then we're going to follow that up by reading the article Why Abortion is Immoral by Don Marquis. And this was written in the 1980s when abortion was legal everywhere. So we'll be reading one article that argues for the moral permissibility of abortion, and then one article that argues for the moral impermissibility of abortion. So that will be the week of April 10th. The week of April 17th, we're going to be covering two other contemporary topics. One will be the topic or the question of poverty in the world, which is an important moral question. And then we're going to end the course by talking about modern concepts of virtue. So we'll have two topics that week by two very different writers. One will be Peter Singer, who is still alive. Both of these men are still alive. And I think they're the only people that we'll be reading that are still alive. Peter Singer is a philosophy professor at Princeton University and is probably the foremost utilitarian thinker in the world. And then we're also going to be reading excerpts from a book by Alistair MacIntyre, who is still alive, although not actively teaching anymore. He's a professor emeritus at Notre Dame University in Indiana. And that's going to be the scope of our course. The week of April 24th will be a review week. We will have some review lectures that will be available that week. And of course, I'll be available to answer any questions. And the week of the first week of May, then the first full week of May, I think it's the week of May 3rd, that will be the final exam week. And our final exam is going to be due on Wednesday, May 3rd. So I think it's the week of May 1st. So Wednesday, May 3rd is when our final will be due, and you'll submit that electronically. Now, this is an online course, and so there's not going to be a time that we're all going to be meeting together on campus. Now, I do still have an office on campus, and that is Mannerheim 315. and I will still be available to meet with you in that office if you would like to meet. Since the course is not going to be live on campus, we're not going to have regular office hours. So I would encourage you to email me or to text me, and my text is, I think my cell phone number is on Canvas. I'll make sure that it's there. Email me or text me, and then we will be able to set up a time. We can either meet in person in my office in Mannerheim 315, or if it's more convenient for you, we can meet virtually. We can use either Zoom or Google Meet or something like that. Both of those are good options. So this is the scope of our course. Now I want to say a few things about what ethics are. And I think that I'm going to put that in a separate note or a separate video, so that if you have time to watch this one and then maybe take a break or something and then watch the other one. So I will see you again at the next video.